Waters, Jillian Turner, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. A new push on immigration. President Trump is reaching across the aisle to strike a deal with Democrats on so-called dreamers. In return, the president wants funding to pay for the border wall. Some top priorities in his 70-point plan include building the wall, hiring 10,000 additional ICE agents and 600 prosecutors, mandatory E-Verify system which confirms an immigrant's work eligibility, and a new points-based system for green cards. But don't expect a deal from the Democrats. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi already saying, no thanks. Quote, we told the president at our meeting that we were open to reasonable border security measures alongside the DREAM Act. But this list goes so far beyond what is reasonable. This proposal fails to represent any attempt at compromise. Meanwhile, the president's counselor has this message for critics on the left.
They should actually be calling their friends Chuck and Nancy to say, you know, are you going to give up this deal because you don't want to, why don't you want a border wall constructed? Why don't you want more immigration judges and agents? And why isn't a reasonable policy to limit chain migration? And also to stop these visa overstays and to make sure people that are flouting the law once they're here, breaking the law once they're here, go back.
Okay, so Jesse, what do you make of this plan? The Democrats obviously pushing back, but Trump, a.k.a. the wall, pushing forward.
That's right. Well, Crying Chuck needs to put down the New York Times and start reading The Art of the Deal, because this is classic Trump. You start with a big ask, and then you dial it back and end up getting 75% of what you want. Right. I'm sick of hearing this is a non-starter. Can we ban that phrase?
Yes.
According to Democrats, anything the Republicans propose is a non-starter. The Democrats' idea of compromise is 100% of what they want. I understand why, though, because the Republicans in Congress have caved and buckled for the last 8 years. So it's two-pronged strategy here. One, you insert the wall, and at the last minute, you dial it back, and then you look like you're flexible and a big leader. Or you take the wall to the limit and make the Democrats look like rigid radicals. But here, he still has a trump card. He can extend DACA if he doesn't like the terms for an extra 6 months, so he controls the whole debate. The issue, though, is the wall isn't as popular as protecting dreamers. But I don't think Trump cares about polling, and I think his base is going to stay with him no matter what.
Well, he cares about that base.
Exactly.
He does care about dreamers.
Yes, he does care, but he also cares about the big, beautiful wall.
Big and beautiful. Greg.
I'm a dreamer. I dream about the wall. But, you know, they're green cards. They're not gift cards. And I think somewhere along the line, we lost our way. What's wrong with a little bit of processing, a little bit of rules? I don't think it's that big of a deal. But 70 points. That's a lot of points.
It's a lot.
Could you imagine being in that?
It's not 1,000 points, 11.
You imagine being in that meeting, you know, point 22. Yeah. And then it's like, you just go like, geez, there's 47 more points.
But it's refreshing to hear you talk about rules and process in such a respectful way.
This is an interesting point. No, this is an interesting point, because the argument that the Democrats have about immigration is exactly the opposite of their argument for gun control. They don't want laws. They go with immigration. They go, what? Why do we need more laws? Why do we need more laws? We need sanctuary because you know what they're going to. But that's exactly opposite the gun control law argument, which is we need more laws. We need more friction. We need to slow things down. But they can't do it with immigration. I find that very interesting. By the way, that can work both ways. You can say that somebody that argues against gun control laws, why do they want laws for immigration?
I like the first way better.
Thank you.
It's so true, and you see it with Governor Jerry Brown doing that with California and essentially making it a sanctuary state. They want to put, you know, and make their own laws and play by their own rules, but yet they don't like these over here. Hello, Juan.
How are you?
Welcome back, Juan.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
How do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, I see it so differently because I realized that there was a deal in place, a deal between the president and Chuck and Nancy, right? And then the president has in a group of Republican senators who say, hey, we think you are pushing us out, Mr. President. We don't like this. Why don't we look at some principles that we can employ with regard to immigration? And so then, having struck a deal with Chuck and Nancy, Guess
Chancey.
what? Huh?
Call him Chancey.
Chancey. All right.
Oh
Having
my God.
struck a deal.
Hashtag.
Hashtag Chancey. He then goes back to them and says, here's my principles. Well, wait a second. And nobody does business this way. Nobody does a deal where you say, it's all on my terms or no terms or the highway. And that's what he did. So then when the Democrats say, excuse us, that's not the deal we discussed, because they had agreed, by the way, Jesse, to added security on the border as part of their deal. And they had agreed that they want e-verify. They want so many of these things.
So what was the deal
Trump,
breaker?
Because Trump has just gone back and undone the deal. And I agree with what Jillian said. I've read Trump saying he cares about the dreamers. He would not want to do anything to hurt the dreamers.
But we don't want more dreamers, and that's the point, and that's what the wall accomplishes.
Dreams have to end, according to Waters.
Someone's got to wake up eventually.
But Jesse, the dreamers are a circumscribed group. They are not. You can't add more.
Sure you can. When you have more coming over and bringing their children, hence more dreamers.
That almost got weird for a second there. So hashtag, I saw the look
What does
on
their
Greg's
religious
face.
practices have to do with anything?
Leave it out of it, okay? So hashtag Chancey, whose theme song, I guess, is going to be ABBA. Take a Chancey on me.
What about Nuck? I like Nuck.
I like that a lot. So, Jillian, I like what you're saying here. You're saying, you know what, the president isn't trying to be mean-spirited or not honor those like hardworking Americans who came here perhaps through no fault directly of their own. So is there a way to kind of make both sides happy a little bit, or will the Democrats just be obstructionists? Because now you see Chancey saying, no, we have no bid for this.
Well, I was surprised to see what worries me in this proposal is there is an element of using the Dreamers as a negotiating chip. And President Trump has taken great care in many speeches, many public remarks to talk about the fact that emotionally and psychologically he connects with the idea that America should be a place to welcome these people.
Sure.
So I was disappointed by that. But my own political stuff aside for a second, I think the proposal that was submitted yesterday is really the administration's answer to the criticism that President Trump received in the wake of the failed health care repeal, which is that he was not invested personally. He was not involved in the process. He was not down in the nitty-gritty, figuring this stuff out, trying to help Congress come up with the specifics to populate this bill. This is something that's chock-a-block full of specifics. No one can levy that criticism again, against him in this instance. I think that was really the priority here, was cobbling together a complete plan.
So, Jillian, the thing here is, though, that when I just want to put the point out there, the president has been willing to reach across to the Democrats to try to find some common ground. He's doing that even right now with Chuck Schumer as it relates to health care and saying, hey, look, I'm willing to do a deal. Like, can you guys come and sit at the table? No, but he is. You can't say that he's not. He's reached out in that regard.
Isn't he trying to undercut the health care deal?
Well, this comes to Jesse's
He's trying to make it better. And when are the Democrats?
We have a case to make. The American people want us to stay. Why are you guys making us a political football? And Nancy Pelosi, remember, she ran off the stage. You humiliated her. You enjoyed that moment.
I very much did, Juan.
Okay,
Let's
so
play
now,
it. They have the tape.
so now, guess
Specialty.
what? Here comes Donald Trump, and he's in trouble with the Republicans. So he says, oh, wait a second, I got some principles here, and he's changing the deal, Jesse.
Wow.
That's not the
He's
art of the deal.
changing the deal
That's the
because
art
he has
of the
principles.
reneging on a deal.
Sounds like a good deal to me.
Oh, principle, yeah, reneging on a deal. That's not you.
No, listen, he always said he wanted massive border funding as part of this
made
deal.
a deal to give him some border funding.
It was a handshake deal, Ron. There was nothing in writing.
If a Democrat did this to you, you would be through the roof, Jesse Waters.
Wouldn't, because it wouldn't happen to me.
Oh, I see.
All right, Greg.
When you
Seize the
compare,
moment.
When you compare exit question, okay? McLaughlin Group. Call back. If you compare illegal immigration to the Russian meddling, why is one foreign influence okay and the other one not?
I don't think that's a fair. That is not
supposed to be
a fair
analysis. It's not supposed to be fair, but it's a great question.
It is a non-starter.
You know why?
It is a non-starter.
You know why it's not fair? Because it's a great question. Why is it illegal immigration can have an impact on your elections and on what you do, but Russian meddling can't?
Great point.
What are you talking about?
Point.
One is a domestic issue for us as Americans.
Illegal immigrants are not domestic. They're coming from other countries.
Oh, that they're in our country, Greg? They're here.
There were Russians in here, too.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
But, okay, also
I can tell you.
The idea of foreigners voting without registering, so voting illegally in this country, that myth was
Picketing.
largely
No,
dispelled
I'm talking about
after the
picketing.
2016
I'm talking about demonstrations,
Like
political
protesting.
demonstrations. Keep up.
No.
Whoa!
All right,
Whoa.
Gutfeld, you're on a timeout. Not a
She
word
knows I'm
from you
kidding.
during
This is 'cause she's in
the
the data
entire.
seat.
You know what, Jillian?
Commercial break.
Jillian, he's a Russian. I think he's a
Yeah,
Russian.
I'm a spy.
Well, no,
I wouldn't put it past you.
he has associations with her. Okay, coming up, more national anthem protests this weekend for the NFL, and the vice president takes a stand. That's next. Stay with us.
Swish, swish, bish. Another one in the basket.
Just when you thought we were out, the NFL players pull us right back in.
Oh, man.
Vice President Mike Pence and his wife attended the Colts 49ers game Sunday, only to witness the 49er players kneeling for the national anthem once again. So the vice president left the game, tweeting, "I left today's Colts game because POTUS and I will not dignify any event that disrespects our soldiers, our flag, and our national anthem." The president jumped in, supporting the vice president. "I asked VP Pence to leave stadium if any players kneeled, disrespecting our country. I am proud of him and Second Lady Karen." But now critics are suggesting it was a stunt. Here's Eric Reed of the 49ers.
So this is
The last time he's been to a Colts game was 3 years ago. So this looks like a PR stunt to me. He knew our team has had the most players protests. He knew that we were probably going to do it again.
so ridiculous.
By the way, it should be noted that the vice president was scheduled to be at that game for the statue unveiling of Peyton Manning.
Take the statue down.
I know. What are we going to do?
Crazy.
I think that statue's got to come down. Gutfeld.
Yeah, look,
What do you think?
okay. The idea that you're concluding that it's a stunt does not make you intelligent. He could have been good, but he knew this was going to happen. It's a stunt. So what? The media uses every crisis as a stunt. If one side can pull stunts, if the NFL can pull publicity or political stunts, why can't the vice president do the same thing? I think that they basically just spiked the football on the NFL. And I think it's hilarious. You responded with a political stunt and a publicity stunt against one that had caused so much divisiveness. I think it's great, but just admit it. It was a stunt. And so what? I love stunts.
Why are you doing this? Why are you undercutting me before I can argue with you? What is wrong?
Dawn hates it when that
Something is wrong with him today. I think it's that Russian guy he's in here.
Oh,
But I mean, Juan, was it a stunt? I mean, he has a son who's active duty in the Marine Corps. Maybe he was very upset about the kneeling.
Well, from all that we hear, he spoke to Trump right before. He tells the people in the press pool, don't get out of your cars because I'm going to leave soon. And then, I mean, it looks like every indication is it was a stunt.
And it was an effective stunt because everybody's
But
talking
I don't
about
think it was a stunt. Pushing back, pushing back, pushing back.
Kimberly, go ahead.
Just because it was planned.
He's a huge fan of the Colts, so why wouldn't he be there? You know, wearing the jersey, the whole thing. This was planned ahead of time, and by the way, he should support the president.
Wait a
and
second,
say
you said it was planned ahead of time.
meaning the event for him to attend the game, and he was already going to be there for a discussion tax cut, so he went. And okay, so the 49ers know what's wrong with the team. But by the way, Colin, who started all this, like, hey, I'll play for any team. I'm going to stand now. It's no problem, no kneeling. That's the other latest thing from him.
I think he's pushing back on that, or his girlfriend is.
Yeah, that was
Let's see.
Yeah, someone said that was fake news, and I'd like to hear from Colin. Can he do an interview one of these days? It would clear a lot of things up.
I'd like to go sock shopping with him.
Yeah, he needs to upgrade the wardrobe. Now, Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, said that all the players are going to stand. And if you don't stand, you're going to get into some trouble. What do you think about that?
I think that it's fair because the NFL, as we've discussed before, has very clear guidelines that are distributed to all the players about what conduct on the field during, before, and after the game is supposed to look like.
Right.
That said, there's some distance between you and I on this. I think that nobody's really pulling a stunt here.
Of their players.
Yes, he said that there are a lot of owners who are afraid that the players are going to do this and they don't want to come down too hard on them. But let me ask you this.
They're going to do what?
They're going to kneel, and it's going to be bad for business and terrible PR.
Well, guess what? They should remember the baseball strike. That didn't work out so well for baseball if they're going to get too cute with this.
But I think
let me
far,
just
this
ask
has
one.
been in their financial interest. All the national and international attention on this on the NFL.
The ratings don't really prove that. Juan, let me ask you, Jamil Hill, our friend over at ESPN who got into trouble for saying that Trump was a white supremacist, weighed in again and wants to boycott Jerry Jones's advertisers from the Cowboys, was just suspended.
Right. And
Fair, unfair?
Well, I think that when she starts to do things repeatedly, and according to ESPN, they had spoken with her and not suspended her after the first comment, but made it clear that she represents the company. So, you know, by the standard I would apply to myself as an employee of Fox, I am not free to go out there and say things that would be contrary to Fox's best interest. You can ask me things, I can say things in my personal life, but guess what? I do work for Fox, and I'm a proud employee of this company. So I think she understood that she broke a rule, and I think I'm interested in knowing how other people, especially other black people at ESPN, react, because the first time when there was some question about what she had done and whether or not she should pull off the air, everybody said, no, we're not sitting in for Jamil. In this case, I think Jamil intentionally intentionally broke a rule and knows that she intentionally broke a rule.
You're a 49ers fan, right?
Right.
And you're a 49ers fan?
Yes.
Do you know that they're 2-19 since this whole kneeling thing began?
And this is a team. The thing that kills me, Jesse, and I know it kills Kimberly, this was an amazing team, one of the greatest teams ever in the 80s and the 90s. And it's like you can't even remember that. But drives me nuts about this whole thing is that if you endorse patriotic symbolism, the media will mock you. You're so old-fashioned and irrelevant. But if you resist patriotic symbolism, they elevate you because you're edgy and you're cool.
Right.
That's the bottom. I think that's the core bottom line issue here is that if you mock something that is considered traditionally American, it's great.
But they're hanging you out to dry because the majority of the country disagrees with that position.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? How about put a couple wins up on the board? They're like shaming the